It's working.
Is my mic on?
It's on. Sweet lady? Sweet lady?
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. Yeah, good. Come on. Great job, man. Y'all make some noise for our host, man. Come on. Make some noise.
Thank you.
This brother has been on fire today. So I came here since 11 a.m. I've been sneaking. I've been up there, down there in the back, hiding. I sat on the front row when Robert Smith was out here speaking earlier. I'm about to introduce someone really, really special to me that has changed my life since the moment that I went to an award show, and I thought I was there to perform. We did a tribute to Patti LaBelle, and here I am in the audience. You know how the reason that y'all are here, let me talk to y'all for a second. The reason that y'all are here is because there must be something that keeps you up at night. Sometimes the things that keep you up at night is so big and so overwhelming, you can't really have these conversations with small-minded people. So to be here with ForbesBLK. Forbes is heavily associated to being, if you're on the cover of Forbes, you know you're doing something, right? Now, put some black on it. They're basically inviting us to get in the car. They're saying it's very, very possible for you to become the things that you want to become, but to listen to the gateways, to listen to what is possible, for you to start thinking and believing, I'm not crazy that I'm dreaming this big. I know I got minus $12 and I couldn't add cheese the last 12 times I was in the drive-thru, but my appetite and my dream and my desire to do it is still there. I want y'all to know you're not crazy. I've been on since I was 16. Coca-Cola commercial, 30 seconds turned into 30 years. I'll say it again, 30 seconds. I've been talking longer than 30 seconds. So my career should have came and went already. 30 seconds turned into 30 years. And the appetite and the desire and the excitement about what God is about to do next has never went away. If you think that your excitement about what you want to do and achieve is going to change once you make money, then you're defined by money. When you're defined by impact, you do something impactful, and then you're looking to do the next thing. And then the money just keeps piling up and piling up. The motivation can't be money. You're just gonna notice that money is being made because you're so focused. You're so focused on the impact. So as I'm sitting in the audience listening to Robert Smith, no different than you, no different than every other speaker that has came up here and decided to be selfless, because they don't have to share anything. They don't have to give nobody no insight. It is very normal for people to be threatened and intimidated and insecure about passing you information to where you can now achieve the things that they've achieved or potentially pass them by. That's why black people don't be telling black people nothing. Oh, you think I'm about to give you the insight on how? But this man that's coming out is a man that changed my life. There's a word that has been driven into my mind that I heard him say in the middle of a speech that included economic apartheid. Does anybody know about the apartheid of South Africa? Economic apartheid. He's talking about the financial disparities between opportunities that white people are given naturally versus what very little we are given to work with to try and get our visions and ideas and projects and developments and investments off the ground. But when he said economic apartheid, that thing socked me in my stomach. I was like, pfft. And then I left my girlfriend at the table. I gotta go meet this man. And I push through all these dinner tables. Everybody, Tyrese. I'm walking by, I'm like, sir, I'll be. Don Peebles is his name. Ladies and gentlemen, I want y'all to stand on your feet right now. I know y'all been here. We got to get some energy going. Stand up on your feet. Stand up on your feet. Shake your arms out a little bit. Okay, if you ain't worried about your hair falling off, give it a little wiggle. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But this man that's coming out here, I want y'all to understand that if you give him an opportunity to share the words that he's about to share, your life, just like my life, is going to be very different after today. And so that you don't try and retain everything that he's about to say, go on your phone, put it in airplane mode, and press the voice note button. Okay? Y'all been listening to a lot all day. And I don't want y'all to be writing notes and miss something. Don Peebles is here to share because he's got a problem with the economic apartheid. Y'all make some noise for the legendary developer, entrepreneur, multi-billionaire, developer, every city and every country's secret weapon, Mr. Don Peebles. Don Peebles Corporation.
Appreciate you, my brother.
Well, yeah, it's perfect. Wow, I want Tyrese as my hype man. How do I do that? That was great. That was great. All right. I love it. All right, no pressure, Don. No pressure after that. All right, so Don, we just did our first ForbesBLK 50 a few months ago. You're a member of that group, and you are also, I think most of people here know, the largest black real estate developer in America. Question. Real estate's a dynamic, it's a dynastic, you think, you're in DC, the Lerners, the DeBartolos, listen, Trump, there was Fred Trump before there was Donald Trump. It's a dynamic. So here you are in DC, you're in your early 20s, you're a real estate appraiser, you got a job, doing, working for Marion Barry, doing permits and approvals and things like that. How did you say, as a young 20-something, you know what, I want to be on the other side of this table?
It's interesting. By the way, first I want to thank my friend and business partner saying all those kind words for me. And he's been a true inspiration to me as well. I mean, he's an example of what the American dream is and the fact that there's no limitations. And I think that's really kind of what we connected so well is answering your question. I learned from my mother. My mother had me when she was 19 years old. And my parents were divorced when I was 5. And my mother had bigger dreams. And so she, got her real estate sales license, started a brokerage business, worked at Fannie Mae. And unfortunately, her timing was just off. She started her career in the late 1960s and early 70s. And as a black woman in America, it was very challenging for her. And so I saw her dreams. I was a part of them. It was the two of us. And and I also saw the injustice that she confronted. And so it inspired me to want to be on the other side of the equation so that I could make it a difference. And my grandfather was a hotel doorman for 41 years at the Wardman Park Marriott in Washington, D.C. And I thought that, again, where you have an environment where there should be limitless opportunity, it wasn't for him. And so I thought that maybe if I owned a hotel, I could make a difference for other people. And so that's kind of what propelled me in my career overall. I mean, it's about making a difference and being a part of change.
There's so many, and I've so enjoyed the last couple of days with so many young superstars here, and you see them about to make that leap. How did your first deal, you've said before, was bigger than you thought you maybe could do or should do, but yet you did it. What was that moment or what was that thought that made you say, you know what? Yeah, nobody thinks I should do this. That's why I should do this.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that I got lucky. I mean, I was born in 1960, and I started doing business in Washington, D.C. in the 1980s. So one, we had a great economy coming on, and there was a time period at that point where there was a focus on economic empowerment for African Americans. So if you look at Atlanta, which was the epicenter of economic empowerment, with what Maynard Jackson did,
The Atlanta Way.
Hartsfield Jackson Airport, and so many other things in terms of creating opportunities for black entrepreneurs. And Barry, the mayor of the city, who I'd met when I was 14 years old, before he was mayor or on the city council, and he was focused on propelling Washington in the same way. And so I thought that there was no limitation to what my dreams were, and I felt with some hard work and the willingness to take some risk, and I felt, hey, I had nothing to lose, so I might as well take as much risk as I can and work as hard as possible and try to outwork everybody.
It's like they say, the best time to learn to ski is when you're 2 or 3, because when you fall down, it doesn't hurt.
Right.
And if you have nothing to lose, you have everything to gain. So good. It hasn't, nobody's ride is straight up. What was your biggest failure in that period, and what did you learn from it?
The biggest failure actually happened in Washington, D.C. So as I mentioned, I met Barry when I was 14. He became mayor when I was 18. I started working with him in his administration when I was 23. And I ran the property assessment appeal board for him and his administration from the time I was 24 to 28. I built my first building under his administration with the city of Washington as my tenant when I was 26. So I'd known him for a very long time. And by the time I was in my early 30s, I was fundraising for Bill Clinton for his campaign for presidency. I was fundraising for governor. So I was a pretty powerful person when it came to political fundraising. And Barry was my mentor. And he had his problems and left office after, he finished his term, left in disgrace, and then had a miraculous comeback. And he came back 4 years later. The city was trying to build a new arena in downtown DC, and I had won the rights to relocate the office workers that were in office buildings on the site that would be demolished to make room for the arena. And I was $58 million less expensive, but the media hated him, Washington Post in particular, and so they zeroed in on my leases, and they tried to say it was an insider deal, et cetera. Long and the short of it is, while I had the votes on the city council, ultimately Barry lost his nerve, and he pulled my deal. And so I was 30, I guess it must have been 34, 35. My son was just born. And so I was trying to figure out what I'm going to do, because I was, here I is, $58 million less expensive, and I can't win. That means there's not going to be a fair opportunity for me here. So I went on vacation with my wife to Miami Beach for Ian Schrager's new hotel, the Delano. And this happened right around my wedding anniversary. And I said, let's go take a break and figure this out. And so when I liked it, got a vacation home there. We stayed there for 2 weeks. And then I was down there Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, read a newspaper article about the city looking for a developer to build the nation's first African-American-owned hotel in South Beach. I read about it and said, hey, maybe, this is something, there are not many developers black that could do a deal of this scale. Hopefully none of them are reading the Miami Herald right now, and that I could win this. So we were flying back to DC, and I'd gotten a copy of the request for proposals, and I told my wife, we're gonna bid on this hotel, we're gonna win it, and it's gonna change the trajectory of the company. And from then, so that by June of 1996, we had won the rights to build the Royal Palm Hotel.
So the lesson I'm taking out of that is, when you're having a pitfall in your career, go down to Miami for 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, and actually, it created the philosophy of my business and how I looked at business. Every setback is an opportunity in disguise. The challenge is that we become victims when we're hit hard. And so it's like the most dangerous boxer is a counterpuncher. Because if the boxer can take a punch and absorb it and and they can keep their head, then they see that the opponent who's just punched him is wide open, and then they can deliver a knockout punch. And so I looked at it and say, hey, it was an opportunity, and I saw the opportunity. I got out of Washington, D.C. If not, I'd still be building some government buildings and worrying about who the mayor of Washington, D.C. was, and now I could care less.
Let's stay while we're there in Miami. My family's from Miami. I know Miami super well. It's an amazing city and region of opportunity, but there are a lot of old prejudices. You were, the Bath Club. Bath Club was a club No blacks, no Jews. That was the rule. You were the first black member, I believe.
I was.
And then 3 years later, what happened?
Yeah, so I became the first black member in 1996 by accident. I was just looking for a place where my wife and son
You didn't put
could
your
go to the
picture in
beach.
the application? Or,
I went and toured the place, and I actually couldn't tour it during the day. I was too busy. So I went one evening, and a couple of board members met me there, gave me a tour of the place. It looked all run down, but it was on the beach, and so I said, great, we'll join. And I got called by a reporter asking me how did it feel to be the first black member of the Bass Club. And I was surprised, from D.C., that there'd be such a place. It taught me a little bit more about Miami. And so a couple years later, they were in financial problems, and someone brought the deal to me saying they were looking to sell the property, and I thought about it, and what kind of impact it would be for the first black member to buy it. And then, and so I made a proposal to buy it. I bought it for underpriced, I think, and then built a luxury condominium development there. And so I was talking about this yesterday at a real estate conference at the Bass Club yesterday. What I realized is that it was the best way to make a statement. And I also voluntarily designated the building a historic landmark, because I do believe that we need to remember that Miami was a place of anti-Semitism and racism. And by the way, anti-Semitism and racism run together. People who don't want blacks don't want Jews either. People who are racist are anti-Semitic. People who are anti-Semitic are racist. And that's why there was no blacks, no Jews in the bylaws of that club. And so I wanted to make that a permanent facility. I left it intact, even with the names of the original members and all of that on there, because I thought people should understand where we've come from so we never get there again.
That's a great story. Great story. The, Tyrese was talking about the idea of economic apartheid. The key is, access to capital. How do we solve that? You won a quick fan with that talk. What's the riddle? What's the answer?
Well, first of all, everybody understands that in business, capital is the gasoline that fuels the engine. Without capital, you can't get started, you can't get anything done. The challenge is that, so for example, right now, as we sit here today, there's over $87 trillion in venture capital and private equity. $87 trillion. Of that $87 trillion, less than 1.3% of it's invested in firms run or owned by women and people of color combined. 1.3%. So that means the vast majority, 98.7%, goes to a minority in the country, white men. And the reality is that there is systemic discrimination when it comes to allocation of capital. So nobody can ever get started. So we're never going to close the wealth gap. We're never going to have a true equal society without dealing with the access to capital. And here's the irony. The biggest contributors, the biggest investors in private equity and venture capital are public employee pension systems. And who works in the New York teachers? Who are the New York teachers? Who are the Georgia teachers? Who are the Texas teachers? They are women and people of color. Who are the government workers? Women and people of color. Because generally speaking, we can't go to the private sector because they don't give us a fair opportunity. So we can't even get a fair share of our own money. Part of that is that our kids are being brainwashed, wasting their time learning about what happened in Europe 300 years ago as opposed to what's happening in America today. And until we teach them about that and financial literacy, we're going to have that. So what I do is with every chance I get, I talk about these statistics, and I do it on national television. I did it when Tyrese and I met at the Griot Awards, because until we educate ourselves about what the problem is, then we're not going to change it. And I think that's the big issue here is that right now, everybody wants this anti-DEI. And by the way, the people who are anti-DEI, they benefited from it too. It's called legacy, and it's called a head start. So think about it this way. We're running the Indianapolis 500 race, and we got driver 1 and driver 2. Driver 1 gets to start off on lap 450. And driver 2 starts off on lap 1. They're both driving Ferraris, and driver 2 is better than driver 1. But they say, hey, let the best driver win. Now, the only way driver 2 wins is if driver 1 crashes and burns. That's our economy today, and we can't have that. And so we have to stand out and say, hey, we're not going to accept this. We got to become more literate about capital. We have to understand that this is a capitalistic democracy, and the pillars of our democracy, what our democracy rests on, is capitalism. If capitalism is unfair, it will fail. And when it fails, so will our democracy. That is why there will be a Democratic Socialist, most likely elected mayor of New York, and there's one running Boston right now, because people feel the system's inequitable. So if we can change that, and the only way you do that is by education. And we're not the first to confront these obstacles. So we're just the current ones. And so I think that's really the answer here. And I think that's part of what I've tried to dedicate my career doing, is showing what's possible. I mean, that's really what this is.
That's at the end of the day, what people want. Nobody wants an equal outcome. They just want an equal chance. And that's when our country works best.
Right.
Speaking of giving an equal chance, you and I have gotten to know each other over more than a decade now. We do Forbes as a philanthropy summit every year, where we bring some of those successful people in the country together to talk about the responsibility of success. You come every year. Don is legit in that I've seen it with my own eyes, and that you come, you're there the whole day, you're leaning in, you're meeting other people. Where did that come from? Because we invite basically every billionaire in the world, and about 100 show up, and you show up every year. So where's that? So not everybody is wired that way. Where'd that come from?
I mean, I think, at 65, I started thinking about why I'm doing what I did and why I do it. And it's really a sense of responsibility and purpose. I think that I never got into the business to make a lot of money. I got into the business to be transformative. And I do believe that there's a responsibility. I think we all have a responsibility to make our society better. My particular responsibility is to help African Americans do better. And so I can do that. And I try to do that philanthropically with education. And so we fund schools that are educating young kids early in a different way in elementary school, and preparing them so that they can compete, but also that they start thinking differently. And I think that, what I learned from Forbes is different ways to make an impact through philanthropy, and how to do that. And what philanthropy looks like. One of the things I like most about the Forbes Summit is it's not just about the money that people give philanthropically. It's the engagement, it's the brain power, it's the knowledge, and so on. And that's what's been inspirational to me. And that's what I've just been wired to try to make it a little bit better.
And the role modeling, that when you do that, people are watching you, and they hopefully they look up to you and they emulate you. We're out of time, so last question. You have all these things going on. Again, you're in great shape, so you got a lot of years to go. But what do you in terms of legacy? You start thinking about that. What do you want it to be?
Well, I mean, I'd like it to be that I was a part of change, but it also is a business that will continue beyond me. I took the view that I have 2 children, a son who's 31 and a daughter who's 22, and my job was to prepare my son, and both my daughter and son, but focusing on my son for a moment, to prepare him to pursue his goals and his dreams, and to be able to do that effectively, and to instill in him a sense of responsibility. And so he decided he wanted to work in the company, and he decided that we needed to be a part of a solution for affordable housing. So he started an affordable housing business for us, and I think the legacy for him is that he can continue what we're doing and do it differently, but making an impact. And he's super talented and smart and prepared to do it, and does a good job. And then my daughter, who I think is a lot like me, and really is more about confronting obstacles and bringing about change, and taking a sledgehammer and trying to do it. And so I'm encouraging her to look at many different things. We were talking about, she was looking, we had watched this documentary on Katrina, and she was just, the Hurricane Katrina and what happened in New Orleans, and she was just taken aback by how unfair it was, and how people of color had essentially been ignored, and that something had to be done about it. And I said, yeah, we should do something. You should do something about it. She said, well, why don't you do something about it? I said, well, honey, I don't have enough money to make a change like that that's so transformative. I said, but if you took Elon Musk You took Jeff Bezos and you took Mark Zuckerberg, they don't have enough money. But Donald Trump is controlling enough money that if he chose to address this, he could. And so politics is where you should be looking if you want to make a change. And the mayor of Atlanta can make a change in Atlanta. The mayor of New York can make a change in New York. And the governor of California can make a change in California. And so I think more of our smart, committed young people ought to look at politics as a vehicle of transformation as well. And so I'm hopeful that, I mean, what I want is I want to leave behind kids who will make a contribution and make our society a little bit better. And to have, done things that show that, like people in this audience, that I'm a human being with and I have no superpowers, but I have a sense of purpose. And I think with a sense of purpose, anyone can do anything they set their mind to. And that's what I would like to leave as an impression about, me walking this planet for the short time I'll be here.
The country needs more people like you. What do you think? Did Don live up to Tyrese's, hype here?
I hope so.
We appreciate you very much. Thanks for all you do. Thank you. Don Peebles, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.